Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. And where we are is we're back at KELLSWATER Covenanter Church, or what's known today as the Reformed Presbyterian Church. And there's some artifacts in here which a gentleman, one of the elders, is going to talk to us about. So we're going to go in and have a wee look around the church and see what we've got here. As you can see, this is a beautiful church. Absolutely lovely. You can see the wood and even the wooden ceiling, which I will show you better in a wee second. But absolutely lovely. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Absolutely beautiful. And then that's the pulpit. And this is the gentleman here. Hello, how you doing?
Hello.
Your name's John.
John O'Neill. I'm the clerk of session here in KELLSWATER Church.
And I'm pleased to meet you. So tell me this here, John, this church has a big connection then with the Houstons, yep. David Houston, the Reverend David Houston. Can you tell me anything about that?
Well, for many years, the Covenanters, the Reformed Presbyterians, had no settled ministers. They were dependent on preachers coming across from Scotland to minister here to them. And one of those itinerant preachers was David Houston, who operated in the North Antrim area, including around here in the 1680s, 1690s, at the time when there was persecution of the Covenanters under what was known as the killing times in Scotland. And Houston would go around the congregations around this area, around Derrykeek and Dervick, and then over into to County Derry as well. And it was in this area in 1696, in December of that year, that he died, went on a preaching tour, and was buried in the graveyard in the nearby village of Connor. Now, over the years, his gravestone has disappeared, and we've no idea where actually he was buried in the cemetery. And
Connor, that's not St Saviour's graveyard?
No, there are two graveyards there. There's an old one, and
is that the old one near? I think it's like is it like a restaurant or something?
There's one near the nursing home, I think.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, we're not quite sure exactly, but one of the graveyards there anyway. So.
Yes. And so then also, I believe, and I've done a wee video earlier on John Houston, David's brother, and of course he went to America, and his descendant then was Sam Houston, who was General Houston, and of course he won the Battle of San Jacinto in 1836, if I remember rightly. And the town beside him was named in his honour, Houston. And now it's actually Houston, Texas, which is incredible. But not only is the Houstons got a big connection here, and there's a direct connection with the Houstons here. I noticed it up at the top of the gates. What is that, John?
That's our church hall. And that's called the Houston Memorial Hall because in 1874, Henry Houston of Philadelphia, USA, who was a descendant of David Houston, sent the money from the United States for the building of the hall. The hall, which was on 2 levels, at the road level, which is the hall, and then there was a basement, which actually was laid out as stables, because in those days the people would have come to church either on horseback or on pony and trap.
Yes.
And someone was needed to keep the horses during the services, which could be particularly long.
Yes. Funny you should talk about people coming to church on horseback. I can remember reading about John Wesley, and I can't remember whether it was gallstones or kidney stones, but Wesley was troubled with these. And while he was on his horse one day, whatever way the horse stumbled, it actually cured the condition. It must have moved the stones because Wesley had no more trouble with them. And then another minister is the Reverend William Staveley.
Yes.
And how long was he here? Can you remember, John?
Well, he was born in this area at Ferniskey near Kells and became a minister in 1792, I think. He was ordained at Conlig for the Covenanters in the North Down area. But during his time, he was based mainly at Knockbracken, just outside Belfast. And during his life there, he, on horseback and on foot, made it as far as County Monaghan and formed about 9 Reformed Presbyterian congregations in that area, Loch Brickland and various other towns. Now, he was implicated in the 1798 rebellion and was arrested and held by the government forces at one stage. And after the rebellion was over, he found life very difficult in that area. In 1800, he moved back here to KELLSWATER and was minister here from 1800 until he died in 1825.
And he was also the minister that accompanied Daniel English.
He was, yes, and also William Moore to the scaffold at Carrick.
Oh, was he with William Moore as well?
Yes.
I didn't know that now.
He was with a non-subscribing Presbyterian minister and
Yes.
Stavely were the two ministers who accompanied Orr to the scaffold there.
Oh, I didn't know that now.
And he walked with Daniel English from Ballymena out to Connor.
Yes. And he was hung at the bridge there.
Bridge at Connor, yes.
And so I didn't know now, I have to say, I didn't know that he was with William Moore. Of course, when the United Irishmen were attacking Antrim, that was the song that they sung, wasn't it? Remember Roar?
Well, it would have been a family friend because the two farms marched, as they say in Northern Ireland, they were beside each other.
Ah, yes.
So at that area at Marymount, so Stavely quite likely knew Orr personally.
Yes. And so it's incredible to think that William Stavely actually was the minister here of this church.
Yes, he's buried outside the door here.
Yes, and I've actually done a wee video on that, so you can check that out on YouTube, viewers, because I actually do a wee talk on, I show you the grave of the Reverend William Stavely. So I'm just going to let you look round here, because amazing to think that the Reverend William Stavely actually was minister here.
It was during his time here this building was built. The first church here was 1760.
Oh, so this isn't the first church then?
No, the first church was a converted corn mill in 1760.
Oh, yes.
And then during Stavely's time in 1806, they built this present building. There's a plaque outside which says built AD 1806 for William Stavely minister. John Orr Joyner, Robert Darragh.
Yes, I seen that.
So we know they're two actual craftsmen who built the building at that stage.
And is John Orr buried here?
No, not that far I'm aware.
No. Now, there's some artefacts here that I'm going to get you introduced, but before you do, I have a wee question for you, because I mentioned this on another wee video, but I couldn't remember which skirmish it was. Was there a skirmish down at the bridge down the road there in 1798?
It apparently was. I was researching the history of the Shank Bridge, which is quite near here on the KELLSWATER River, to try and find out some details about it, and I discovered that the County Antrim Grand Jury gave 5 local businessmen a certain amount of money, I can't remember exactly how much, in 1816 to build a bridge over the river. I think it was in connection with the new dye works which was being developed at Bleach Green. And I thought the bridge dated from that date. But then I was talking to a historian who was looking at the Battle of Antrim in 1798, and he has records there of a skirmish on a bridge at the same spot in 1798. So there must have been an earlier bridge, which we think may have been just a simple 2-arch bridge, whereas the one that was developed in 1816 is 7 arches.
And is that the bridge down at the end of the road
Bridge
there?
at the end of the road, yes.
Yes, and so the historian reckons that was in the earlier bridge during the 1798 rebellion.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad I got that information right, because I wasn't exactly sure. I thought it was the 1798 rebellion, but it's been a wee while, few years from I was talking to you. So what have we got here then? If you want to get up and you can show us what we have here then,
Well,
John.
Here are some artifacts. This would have been used to take up the collection as the people walked around the church, and it was put along the pews, and the people would put their money into it.
Yes, I've seen a few of these.
I never remember. They've been lying around here for years. I never remember them being in use, but they apparently were used in the past. Behind it, we have our communion set. This is the plate for the bread. This is the flagon to hold the wine, and then this is the cup, the common cup as it was called, which would be passed around with wine in it during the communion. It's a pewter communion set. We think it dates from around the time of perhaps of the foundation of the congregation, or later, maybe late 18th, early 19th century.
Very good. Now, one thing I've noticed about these, John, is they're very heavy.
Yeah.
They're really heavy. You wouldn't think that they're actually as heavy.
Because pewter contains a large amount of lead, and lead, of course, is very heavy metal.
Yes, and what did you call this here again? This one here?
This is the flagon.
Flagon.
Which would have been used by the minister, would go around the cup, the elders would use to refill
Oh yes, the cup.
the cup when it was emptied.
Well, whenever I was talking to Canon Peter Thompson of the Castle Caulfield, he actually showed me a flagon that the Reverend George Walker used.
Of Governor Walker of
Before he actually left for the Boyne.
Derry.
So it was great to see that. Now, what's these here then?
These are communion tokens. Part of the Presbyterian system of government is that the session controls who has access to the Lord's table, who can come to take communion.
Yes.
And this token was a sign from the session that the person who was given it was acceptable to come to communion. There was nothing known about them of doing any wrong or being in any sinful position.
Yes.
So these were handed out at a pre-communion service or on the morning of the communion service, and then when the people had come to sit down at the table to take communion, the tokens were collected, and the session would therefore know that everyone was acceptable and to come to the Lord's table. These are some of the original ones, which we've dated here from the words. This one here is AC. It's looks like a handmade, but a little lead token. AC stands for Antrim Congregation,
All right.
which would be the KELLSWATER congregation and the Cullybackey congregation, which were called the Antrim congregation at that time.
Yes.
The KRC would be for KELLSWATER Reformed Church.
Oh, yes.
And then the one, because there were so many members here at that stage, communion would have taken place in perhaps 2 sessions or 3 sessions. But not
Yes.
everyone could come forward to sit at the table at the same time. And this would mean that you're the first session or the second session.
I done a few videos actually the other day in Kells on the 1859 revival. Boy, do we need those days back, John, don't we?
The 4th young man who joined the 3 in Kells was actually a member at Wasson. He was a member of this congregation here in KELLSWATER.
Oh, what was his name, sorry?
Wasson.
Yes.
Wasson.
So he was actually a member here?
Yes, and they're still descendants of the family and worshipping in the congregation here. So.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I'll give the viewers another wee view of these.
Stavely's table.
Oh, yes, that's right. There's Stavely's table, the Reverend Stavely's table. You have a story that you want to tell us about that?
Stavely there was an attempt to arrest Stavely at his house, and one of the dragoons lashed out at Stavely with his sword, missed, and hit the table, leaving a slash on the table.
Of course, it's not this table.
No, not this table, but that. And then a number of years ago, we found that Stavely's table is in Canada, because Stavely's, I'm not sure it was son or grandson, immigrated to Canada and was a minister there. And Stavely's table is now in a house in Montreal in Canada, belonging to the Reverend Jim Larmer, who was a minister of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Montreal. And how I got that connection was that my sister's sister-in-law happens to be a member of that congregation in Canada. And we got in contact, and I was able to get a photograph of the actual table with the slash on it.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Because although the minister was Reverend Jim Armour, he was descended on his mother's side,
Yes.
the Staveleys, on his father's side from the Armours of Ballymoney.
Yes. Well, that's great, John. Thanks for taking the time to show us all this here and to bring all this stuff out. And you can see some of the collection poles, I suppose you would call them, or plates at the window there. And I'll show you just the other two here, as you can see. So again, thanks very much, John. And if you enjoy the channel, then please like and subscribe. God bless.